Welcome to another episode of Big Risk Energy. I'm your host, Roei Samuel. I'm a serial entrepreneur, having founded multiple businesses, including one that I scaled and sold to a gaming company in 2018. I've been an investor for the last 5 years, and I'm also super passionate about neurodiversity, suffering with severe ADHD and dyslexia myself. On this podcast, we talk to an amazing range of people, from academics to actors, investors to entrepreneurs, politicians, musicians, scientists, professional athletes, and everyone in between. And we talk to these people about risk they've taken in their lives, risks they've taken in their careers, when they paid off and when they didn't. And on today's episode, I am blessed to be joined by the one and only Lissele Pratt. Lissele has recently been included in Forbes 30 Under 30. She's the co-founder of fintech Capitalixe and a huge advocate for empowering women in tech. Lissele, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm super excited to get going and discuss great things about business and struggles and everything in between.
Amazing. That's what we love to hear. So you've obviously taken a ton of risks in your career. You've defied odds. You've had so much self-belief, which is such a big part of risk-taking. But I want to know, where does your relationship with risk start? Like, where does that drive come from?
That's a good question. So I suppose when I was growing up, I moved around quite a lot. So I was born in London and moved when I was 5 to Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved around constantly in Spain. I probably lived in 5 different houses, and I went to loads of different schools. And then after that, when I was 10, I moved to Thailand, and I stayed there for 5 years. So it was always about me being out of my comfort zone. I was always the outcast at school. I was always the person that didn't really have any friends, and didn't really feel like I belonged anywhere. So it was always like that. I guess that risk comes from me always being out of my comfort zone and me feeling like risk is a normal thing because I'm so used to it and so used to feeling uncomfortable.
What was the reason you guys are moving around so much?
So my dad was part of a gambling company, actually.
Okay.
So we were based near Gibraltar. So we was living in Spain for a while, and my mum is not half Thai. I'm half Thai. My mum is Thai. So we ended up moving to Thailand because my grandmother she was quite ill, so she wanted to be quite near her. But it was I don't regret living in all those places, even though at the time it was difficult for me and I didn't really fit in anywhere. I don't regret it to this day because I feel like I'm so much more culturally aware about everything, and it's given me so much strength to take risks and to just keep getting outside of my comfort zone and growing.
So when did you start appreciating that? Because obviously at the time, as you said, must have been incredibly difficult, always moving around, trying to make new friends, probably lots of different challenges there. When did you start appreciating that?
So it probably not until I was about 21. I guess it probably started after I started my business, when I started to realize, actually I took a big risk. I was 23 when I started my business. I mean, what kind of 23-year-old starts their own fintech company? So obviously it's a bit, I could say it's like naive of me to do that, but you know what? It's a risk that I took and it's paid off. So I guess now that I'm looking back at my life and people ask me, where did that risk come from? It's from always being outside of my comfort zone growing up.
Really interesting. And you say naivety. I think it's healthy delusion.
Oh, yeah.
Every time you're a first-time founder, you need that delusion there, right? Because the first time you do anything, you don't really know what you're doing, right? So it's always a bit of healthy delusion. So I think it goes a long way. So you started off, if I'm right, career-wise in FX.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that something which, again, speaks to risk? Or is that actually... Because I speak to different traders, and some people are like, it's all about risk. Some people, it's about mitigating risk. How do you see trading?
So I initially got into trading. I kind of fell into the role, funny enough.
Okay.
So I was interviewing for loads of jobs in the city. I really wanted to work in finance and I really wanted to make lots of money. I'm going to be honest, that's one of the main drivers for me starting in the industry.
We're all about honesty here. Love that.
So yeah, at 18, I saw finance was the great earning potential, and it really is. And I had 2 options when I was interviewing. So I actually interviewed at this charity, and I got a job offer there, and I also got a job offer at this entry-level foreign exchange position in an FX brokerage. The actual pay for the foreign exchange brokerage was a lot lower than the charity. So I spoke to a few friends about it, and they said, you know what, it's a much better career path than you would working as like in a call center in a charity, basically. So I took the risk, and ever since then, it was very difficult for me at the beginning because I was literally the only woman working on the trading floor.
Wow.
Yeah, out of at the beginning there was about 20 men that I was working around, and out of the whole actual trading floor itself, there was 50 of them.
Wow. And
So,
how old were you at this time?
I was like 19.
Wow, that must have been intimidating.
It was, yeah.
So how did you respond to that? And I imagine this is 10, 11 years ago?
No, I'm 26 now.
Oh, you're 26 now.
Yeah,
Wow,
so it's
okay,
about
right.
7 years ago now.
Wow, okay. And at that time, I guess a lot of the lessons that the world is waking up to now in terms of equality and empowerment were not nearly where they are today. Is that something you experienced?
Yes. So when I was working in the city, it was... funny enough, I actually did a talk about it yesterday, sharing my experiences and the challenge and how we can move forward with that. So I was actually told by a lot of my colleagues that women don't belong in the industry and that women are essentially really bad at their jobs, and they should be in the kitchen or ironing clothes. So just ridiculous comments like that. And there was also a lot of talk around like disgustingly around women when I was around. So I confronted people about it, and they said, "Oh, if you don't like it, then you should just leave. This is how the culture is here."
And is that another driver of yours? Is that something that you being faced with that as a 19-year-old with probably men who are much older than you, who could be perceived as being in positions of power at that time, even if they weren't necessarily, a lot of people would shirk to that, right? A lot of people would shy away from that. But it sounds like something which that's like challenge accepted, right?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people, so there's a good amount, so actually no, there's not a good amount of women coming into the industry, but there's less than 10% of women are in leadership positions in the industry, so in fintech, so that's quite a big difference. And I think what's happening is they're entering the industry, but they're realizing that it's not a nice, welcoming environment for them, and then they leave because it's quite intimidating. But when I first started, I'll be honest, it did get to me at first because I was like, oh, I don't feel like I belong here. I experienced so much imposter syndrome. And like I wasn't good at my job because I was a woman. So because of that, I spoke to a few people like around me, and I just, I was like, you know what? I'm just as deserving and capable as they are. Why because of my gender? Why does that mean that I can't do what they can? It doesn't really matter who I am. I can do it just as well, and I can do it even better probably. Yeah,
it's fascinating. And why do you think it is that so few women are entering finance? And do you see a difference between traditional finance and fintech in terms of the accessibility fees?
I think there's more difficulty for women entering the workforce in finance or fintech because it's often people stereotype finance as being a very male-dominated industry, where it is. But there are a lot more women entering the workforce now, and partly the reason because of they're not entering the workforce is because other women are obviously sharing their stories and the struggles that they've faced, and I guess they see it as quite scary. And when you watch shows on TV, for example, like Industry or Wolf of Wall Street, you kind of like see it as like, oh no, I would not want to work in that environment. Women want to work in a nice environment where they feel welcomed and appreciated, not shouted at all the time and put so much pressure on that you just want to leave.
So what do you think the best way of breaking down those barriers is? If it's not sharing the horror stories and the struggles, and it's obviously not showing things like Wolf of Wall Street or Industry, what do you think the right way to tackle this challenge is?
So the right way to tackle the challenge, funnily enough, this is exactly what I spoke about yesterday.
Great. So you're fully prepped.
I am, yes. So I have 3 ways, and we're currently doing this at Capitalixe as well. One of them is providing entry-level traineeships to women looking to break into the industry. Another one is once they are in part of your work, once they are an employee, giving them a mentorship program. So if you have a senior level woman that's in part of your company, then you should be pairing them up together so they can work on any struggles or challenges that they're facing. And obviously the chances are that senior level woman has been through the same issues that that younger person is going to be going through, so they can be guided in the right direction. And if they're not part of your company, then there's lots of charities and communities that you can be part of, like Women in FinTech or Women in Tech, where you can meet other senior level women. Or essentially you can just reach out to some amazing women on LinkedIn as well. I've met so many nice, amazing women on LinkedIn just by messaging them and telling them how much I appreciate them and how much I respect them.
Yeah, it's amazing advice. So I want to take it back to you're finishing up your career in FX and you decide to take the plunge, go all in, build your own business. What's going through your mind there? And tell us about that part of the journey.
So at 21, 22, I had a strong feeling in my mind, in my soul, that I really wanted to travel. And I was just working, like doing 200 cold calls a day. And I just knew like there was so much more for my life. And I just said to my partner, I really want to travel Asia. So we ended up quitting our jobs and quitting our house, our flat that we only rented for like 6 months. And we said, let's just go to Asia. Let's quit our jobs. Let's put all our stuff into storage and let's just go to Asia.
Something I'm sure everyone has felt at many times. Yeah. Very few people take the risk of actually doing it.
Exactly. And I think it's that having that intuition inside of you. When you have that strong intuition, you have to follow it, because chances are that intuition is going to teach you something that's going to change your life.
And how much do you think, because that's a huge risk to take, right? You know, you've worked incredibly hard, you've overcome a lot of odds to start building a career within FX. Now, when you left to go traveling, did you have a safety net? Did you know that you could go back to that job? Did you know, where are you at mentally? Because that's, a lot of people listening to this will say, well, that's not a risk that I can take. You know, how do you see that?
So I knew that I'd be able to get a job when I got back into the city, because there's always companies looking for good salespeople. Yeah. And so I knew I'd be able to get that, and I did. I didn't really have that much of a safety net. I think I had like £2,000.
Not going to get you very far in London.
No, it wouldn't get me very far in London, but in Asia it stretched out.
Yeah, sure.
And we lived on a budget in like hostels and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had that. That was essentially my safety net.
Yeah.
And when we got back to London, we ended up staying with my partner's parents.
Wow.
For a good few months until we got back on our feet, which was challenging in itself.
But what I love about that, and I think this is such a core part of so many people I speak to, it's that self-belief, which allows you to take risks, that belief that, well, I knew I could go back and get a job. And, you know, in many ways, like, regardless of reality, if you have that belief, it allows you to do those things that other people won't. So talk to me about your self-belief. Is that something you've always had? Is that something that's come through getting through resilience? You know, how do you see your relationship with your self-belief?
So when I was growing up, I did not believe in myself whatsoever. I was often told growing up that I should find a rich husband or that I should get an easy job where I just get a career and just get paid every month, for example, like a teaching assistant or like a teacher. So I was told to go down that route and find a rich husband to look after me, which is, it's ridiculous to hear it now, but it oftentimes your parents would, at that age or that culture, would tell you to find a rich husband to look after you. So that's what I was told. And growing up, I did not really believe in myself. I had a lot of self-doubt. I lacked a lot of confidence. And at the age of 16, I got given some money. So I was like, oh, what can I buy myself? So I bought myself a Kindle. Okay. Yeah, it was probably the best present I could have bought myself.
I mean, that is a great gift to buy yourself. Absolutely, that's endless knowledge right there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a pocket full of knowledge.
Yeah.
So I started buying some really great books like Girl Boss, which obviously is about a rebellious teenager who went through the odds and made a huge business for herself, like a multi-million-pound business. And there's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where I learned so much about like financial literacy and everything, and it really changed my whole perspective on finance. Another one, which is, I guess some might say it's a bit lame, but I started reading The Secret.
Yep, familiar with it.
So that was one of my first self-help books, The Secret. And that really just changed my mind and my perspective on anything is possible as long as you believe in yourself and you have that determination and you just keep reminding yourself that you're just as capable as anyone else. And if you see a successful person, you can do it too. You have to believe in yourself. And I always say this as well, you have to believe in yourself. And there's ways that you can do that. And the ways are getting outside of your comfort zone, doing things that you wouldn't usually do, meeting new people, surrounding yourself with great people as well, because they will lift you up. If you surround yourself with negative people who complain all day, you're going to be like them as well. So you have to find that group that's going to lift you up, and that's really important. Reading the right books as well and consuming the right content. Like, for example, you can create your Instagram or your LinkedIn feed to be positive and not follow just ridiculous junk all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on a really interesting subject there, and I think it's the biggest risk which a lot of people take, and I think it's a risk that more people should take, which is cutting out toxic people. Because I really do believe that you are the composite of the 6 people you spend the most time with. I know that's, it's quite cliche, but I really do believe that to be the case. Humans are so impressionable. So the ability to surround yourself with the right people. So it's something I've done many times, had to cut out people whenever I do realize they're not going to help me, not in terms of, in a narcissistic way of helping me achieve my goals, but support me and be good friends in that way. So I mean, how would you advise someone who is struggling with that very real situation? People have toxic parents, they have toxic partners. It's one of the hardest things, but it's probably the biggest change one can make. What do you advise someone who's thinking about cutting out toxic elements in their life?
Yeah, so there are toxic family members and there are toxic friends. I think the best thing to do is just distance yourself from them. You can still love them from afar. You can still, obviously, if it's like you're a family member, you can still love them from afar, but just don't surround yourself with them all the time. And it's the same, well, friends not so much, but family members, I think it's important to, obviously they're your blood, right? So you have to still love them, but you can love them from a distance. And for friends, I would just distance myself from them and grow apart, I suppose, and then grow towards the right people that are the good friends that are going to lift you up and put you in the right direction, and you both support each other in the right way where you both are getting towards. So you both have that goal where you want to get to, and you help each other. And that's what good friends do. Yeah,
totally. Because when I founded my first business, it was when I was at uni. I was 23, similar to you. Although I didn't brave fintech at that time, I was in content. But I had a huge group of friends because I had my uni friends, I had my home friends. Then I founded a business, and then it became 20 hours a day work. You know how it is. And by the time I sold my business, 4.5 years later, I had 3 best friends left. I had 3 friends left. And I think it's the, understanding that people want to support rather than demand from you. People want to support your energy, and you can support their energy rather than demand your energy. And it's such an important thing to protect. Like I'm someone, I think, like you as well, who is just so impacted by the energy of people around me, and it changes your life.
It's so true. And you can instantly tell, when you go and see friends, you can instantly tell afterwards who has drained your energy and who has given you energy, that you feel motivated and excited.
Yeah.
And when you see those people, those are the ones that you want to be friends with and hang out with more.
Yeah.
Because those are the ones that you feel happy with. There are friends that make you feel happy and ones that literally just suck the energy out of you. And those are the ones you need to avoid.
And you know who they are as well, right?
Yes.
You know who they are. You've just got to make the jump. So if there's any advice from this podcast, it's cut out all your mates, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, so you started your first business. What was the concept behind it?
So The concept was when I was working in the city, me and my partner realized there was a gap in the market to serve the underserved industries.
Mm-hmm.
And these are essentially the newer type industries. So, for example, crypto, they're often like cryptocurrency. Banks don't usually want to deal with them because obviously they see crypto as the enemy. So it's difficult.
Been a good week for changing that reputation,
Yeah,
eh?
exactly. Exactly that, yeah. So they struggle to get payments and banking solutions, so they can't get a bank account. And if they don't have a bank account, then they can't operate their business.
Yes.
It's very difficult for them. So there's crypto, there's gambling industry as well.
Super interesting.
Yeah, so gaming and gambling, as well as like digital money and fintech as well. So these newer industries, they tend to struggle to get viable payment and banking solutions, market-leading ones that we can help them with.
Really interesting. And is that business still running?
Yeah, absolutely. That's Capitalixe.
That's Capitalixe.
Oh,
wow.
are you talking about my first ever business?
Yeah, your first ever
okay.
one. Because like I want to get the full journey. Because like, Capitalixe obviously super interesting, but it's always good for people to hear like, you know, where does it start, right?
Okay. So
this is after you got back from traveling, right?
No. So my first ever business I started when I was 16.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I started selling jewelry in Camden Market.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I bought jewelry over, like imported jewelry over from Thailand, and I obviously got it for pretty cheap. And I had my own jewelry website and a Facebook, and I was selling online as well. But yeah, I made most of my money selling in Camden Market.
Incredible. Yeah, it's a proper hustle.
Yeah.
Okay, so on that, clearly you're someone who's worked incredibly hard from a young age. What do you think about work-life balance?
I mean, I think that's, you know what, I'm going to say this, now that I've worked in my business and I know where I am, I think it's really important to have a work-life balance. And I do understand that it's very difficult for people who are just starting out in their business, because you have to, if you don't put in the work, then nothing's going to grow. So I do think maybe at the start you do have to suffer a bit with your work-life balance. But now I do strive to have a work-life balance, because otherwise I'll get burnt out, and when I'm burnt out I can't be in high performance at my company. So yeah, right now I tend to have my set hours that I work, but to be honest, even during the night I'm still checking my emails and checking work stuff. But it's my baby, you know, it doesn't feel like work, it's my passion and I love it. Like, I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest.
Yeah, of course. I think it's a really important point, because there's a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs, a lot of people who want to be founders, and there is that understanding that for the first few years there is going to be sacrifice, there is going to be pain, and of course you can't sustain that forever, but there needs to be that realization that, you know, work-life balance for the first couple of years, it's not really going to be there. And I think it's got to be to people like me and you to be responsible and share that message and say, look, it's not actually for everyone to quit their jobs and jump into building something, because if you need that work-life balance to stay happy, to stay healthy, to do all those things, it's probably not for you building a business, right?
No, it's not. And when you start a business, you can't just think, oh, I'm going to work 9 to 5. You can't just think in your 9 to 5 mindset or mentality, because you're never going to build something by doing that.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. People get to places by working hard and putting in those hours. And there's a lot of stigma at the moment with hustle culture.
Yeah.
And but I always say this: if you want to get something like somewhere in life, you do have to work hard, and you're going to have to hustle for a bit. But when you obviously get to a good point, then you can start looking after your work-life balance. But I mean, even at the start, when you're first starting your business, you do have to do things to take care of your mental mind, like, for example, meditation or keeping fit, because that's going to help you stay in peak performance as well. Yeah, integrating that into your hustle, I suppose you could call it, is going to be really helpful. Just taking care of your mind and spirituality, and keeping healthy and fit is just how you're going to stay in peak performance.
Yeah, and I think it's that self-awareness which is so important as well, because balance looks different for different people, right? Severe ADHD, for me, if I'm not going 100 miles an hour, I feel off balance.
Yeah.
Like I feel uncomfortable. I get anxiety if I'm not moving forward. So
That's me too.
that's you too,
Yeah.
right? So it's again just checking in with yourself, and I guess that's where meditation comes into it, and understanding that for me to feel happy, for me to feel balanced, for my mind to feel at ease, this is what it looks like. And it's important to have an understanding partner for that as well. But you work with your partner, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we've been together since I actually met him at my first role in FX.
Okay.
So that's how we know each other. And yeah, we've been together ever since, to be honest.
And how is it working with your partner?
It's good. Like we have our
It took a while to think about that one.
No, actually thinking about it, we actually work very well together. Yeah, so we have our understanding that any kind of work-related disagreements, we talk on Slack about it.
That's smart. That's
Yeah.
a really good measure. Okay. And,
Yeah.
and do you ever find there's like a scope creep there, and suddenly you're talking of work outside of Slack, or?
Oh yeah, we always talk about work outside of Slack. Even when we go to dinner, we start talking about work. It's so difficult not to.
Yeah.
Because we love our business so much. It's like our little baby. So
Yeah.
we always got to look out for it and make sure it's doing well. And I guess it's a nice talking point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So how long have you guys been running Capitalize?
3.5 years.
Okay. And what's that journey been like?
It's been interesting. So we essentially launched almost in the middle, well, at the beginning of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that itself was crazy.
Always an interesting time to launch something new, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it gave me so much anxiety when I launched, because obviously I had no idea what was happening and where the world was going, and because it's just so confusing. You don't know, you can't predict the future. So there was that. And then we got some really great clients on during the pandemic, and we just started smashing our niches.
Mm-hmm.
And we grown exponentially, and then we started hiring a team. But then when we launched the business, we ended up going to Thailand for a bit, and that's obviously when we ended up getting stuck out there. Well, voluntarily stuck.
That's okay. I mean, good place to choose.
It is,
So,
yeah.
so because you were in Thailand, right? And they went into a really harsh lockdown, didn't they?
Yes.
So you guys had the opportunity to say, right, are we going to go and stay in for this lockdown? Are we going home? And you decided to stay out.
Yeah, we decided. I mean, it was a lot nicer lockdown than the UK was, because we had a nice villa with a pool.
Yeah, good shout. Good shout. Okay, and then how did you find? So did you already have employees at that point?
No, it was just us
Fine,
two. Yeah.
just you guys at that point. And how big's the team now?
So we're about 8 people now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how do you find managing a distributed team, working totally virtually and remotely?
So there's obviously challenges to working, to operating a fully remote team, but we're very determined to make it happen, because our team love to work remote. We always ask, whenever we're hiring someone, we say, are you comfortable with working remotely? And they said, that's one of the reasons why we want to work here, so we can work remotely. So we've got we've got someone that works in Thailand, someone that works in Portugal, some team in the UK. And then we've got people that love to travel the world as well, like me and my partner.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. That's really cool. Okay, so I've got a few questions that I want to ask you, not quick fire or anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you could identify the single biggest risk you've taken in your life or career, what would it be, and what was the outcome?
Definitely starting Capitalize. Yeah, because I started when I was 23. Probably had about 5 years of no, not 5, like 3 years of experience. No, sorry, I'm so bad at counting. Yeah, I had some experience behind me, but obviously there's that element of being naive and saying, I can do this. I guess if I was like 40 or something and saying, I can start a business, you're obviously going to be looking at all the risks involved and analysing everything. I just said, I'm just going to start my business.
Yeah, do you know, it's really interesting, because we had an event last night with Goldman Sachs, I was telling you, and two of the people on the panel were talking about the age of entrepreneurs. And it's really interesting, because I was under the impression, and I want your view on this, I was under the impression like such a huge trend in young entrepreneurs, people becoming more entrepreneurial, but actually the average age of a founder in tech is 42.
Yeah.
So it's weird. So, like, we take the headlines because we're the young ones and people are like, look at these young people doing this. But actually, it still is not the norm.
No, it's not. And yeah, usually it is around 40 that they take the leap. And I mean, typically what we find, what I've seen as well, is people that start around 40, they have a more, like a higher chance of success rate for their business, because obviously they have the experience behind them, they have the knowledge and everything else. But then obviously there's us that take the leap and just get on with it and try and build something great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating to think, because for me, it's that, like, I look at the average age of my team. We're about 65 people now. And I think the average age of my team, it definitely no older than 28. And it's just that hunger and that passion. And of course, that means there's mistakes that are made.
Mm-hmm.
But the desire to learn, the desire to grow, the desire to, mobilize themselves for a mission, mobilize themselves for personal development. It's amazing to see. Like, for me, I was actually really, really shocked to hear that the success rate, as you said, is so much higher at that late stage. But I guess maybe they're just, still hiring loads and loads of young, exciting, hungry people, but they're just a bit older, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think younger people, this generation, they're a lot more entrepreneurial and they're very hungry to succeed. And I guess because you're following people like Stephen Bartlett or other people that are very inspirational, and they're just guiding them in the right direction, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, my next question for you is there anything in your career or life that you wish you had done differently?
No, you know what? I wouldn't, because I always think that everything happens for a reason. And what got me, maybe the mistakes that I made in the past, I learned from them, but that would have led me onto the right path of getting to where I am now. Like, for example, I never finished, I didn't go to university. I guess when I was younger, I kind of wish that I did, but if I went to university, I wouldn't be on this entrepreneurial journey. I wouldn't have started my business at 23. I wouldn't have gone into fintech. So yeah, to answer that, no, because everything happens for a reason. And even if you regret something and you wish you could have changed it, you may not be on that right path that you are now. I might not be on this podcast with you right now,
Yeah, totally. No, I believe the same thing. I think maybe it's because we're so young as well. Well, I mean, I'm 31. I'm feeling very old now. But, maybe in like 20 years, we'll be like, actually, I wish I'd done that differently. But I think at this stage, totally right. You can't predict the future, as you said before. So, hindsight's 20/20. But I think when things are going well, it's really, at least at this point, easy to not have a life of regrets. But
yeah, exactly. And no life is perfect, right? And
absolutely.
It's always full of ups and downs where you learn from. I think as long as you're learning from your mistakes, that's the most important thing, because I've met people that make mistake after mistake and they don't learn from them. But you can make mistakes. That's how you grow, right? You fail, you learn, and then you keep growing.
Absolutely. Okay, what's the single thing you're most proud of?
I would definitely say getting onto Forbes 30 under 30 is probably one of my biggest achievements. Honestly, when I made it onto there, I actually had to slap myself a few times because I thought I was dreaming. For someone like me, who's in a very male-dominated industry, who started her business at 23, didn't even go to university, and had so much. I had a difficult childhood growing up, so just to be able to achieve something like that made me very proud.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, my second to last question for you is, what does it take to be successful?
As we said before, self-belief is very important. It's really important you have a good mindset, because, like you said before, if you don't believe in yourself, then no one is going to. So it's important that when you believe in yourself, you have that confidence. You have that characteristic about you, and you just carry yourself well. Then people are going to start being drawn to you, and they're going to want to do business with you. So having that self-belief in yourself is very important. Also, being able to work smart but also hard. So there's people that I know that would work hard but they don't do the right things. I think it's important to work smart, work strategically, and always think about working like strategically is very important. So having that element of working smart but also putting in those hours as well.
Yeah, because that's it. Because I actually I'm going to be annoying here. I hate the phrase work smart not hard, because it's doing both.
Yes.
Right. It's as you said, it's not wasting effort on things that you shouldn't be. But the people I know who are the most successful are the ones who figure out how to work smart and still put those hours in.
Exactly. Yes.
You know, it's what you've got to nail it. You've got to understand how to prioritize, how to delegate, do all those things. But it's another one of those phrases where sometimes people misconceive it to be like, I only need to do a few hours a day and I can just, sit in an ivory tower. And I've seen a lot of founders like that, and it never really works well. I love the sentiment. I think it's that you've got to figure it out, but you've got to go for it and put the hours in. Don't think it's going to come easy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you work smart and then you work hard and you achieve so much more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's the very good element in being a successful entrepreneur or even a business person.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, my last question for you, and I've really loved this conversation. My last question for you is, if 15-year-old Lissele walked in right now, what would you tell her?
I would say it's so important that you believe in yourself and know you're just as capable and deserving as anyone else. There's going to be people that will try and put you down, but you just have to ignore them and keep going. You put in those hours and you can achieve so much. You can achieve whatever you want.
Inspirational. Love that. Okay, you got anything you want to plug?
No, not necessarily. I think this has been a really good conversation, and it's so nice to meet other successful entrepreneurs who are just paving the way, and it's great to speak to you and get your point of view, and it's nice to see that we're aligned as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Cheers.